Hello and welcome to episode 265 of the 77 Club. Harry, start with socials.
The Wolves 77 Club on Facebook and Instagram, at 77 Club Podcast on Twitter. We're on Spotify and iTunes. Please rate us.
Dan Baylis is here.
Hello.
And Jack Williams.
Hi.
Harry, lovely day out in the sunshine, ruined by the football, obviously. The late kickoff, 5:30. When the team came out, we were all surprised, none more than the BBC and I think Sky Sports as well, who had us down as a 3-5-2 with Aït-Nouri on the right, but we didn't think that was right. Probably going to be a 4-3-3. I mean, the difference, I think, between beating City last time and obviously the game this time was Rodri. I think you probably agree with that. Absolutely sublime. Ran the show. Erling Haaland is an absolute beast. It feels a bit like 3 cheers for Ramirez, Mike Bassett style. But what we all thought to begin with, I think all I kept saying to you after probably 8 pints was, this press is ridiculous. This press is ridiculous. This press is ridiculous.
Yeah, we were getting suffocated, weren't we, in the opening moments by City. Yeah, the team, it was anyone's guess, wasn't it? It was a bit of an interchanging team that Gary O'Neill seems to like to do, where Aït-Nouri was on the right, but he was sitting in at right wing back. Then we'd go to a 4-3-3. But it didn't matter what we did. We couldn't get the ball off them, and they were suffocating us. And then they have that bizarre penalty, don't they? And once that's given, it's game over. If we can't keep it 0-0 for more than 15 minutes or whatever it is, you just know the floodgate's going to open. And poor decision for me. We couldn't really hear the commentary, could we, in the pub when we were watching it? But we all agreed, and everyone watching it there was like, how's that? The penalty. But yet again, the officials and the referees think it was. Story checks out. It's the story of our season. But that don't matter, because on the day, City were firing. They were up for it. They had to win, and they had to win by some goals to get their goal difference good too. And we were pretty poor, I thought. Going forward and defensively, I thought we were quite sloppy too. And we got what we deserved on the day. And it's not no more than you expect, is it? We're on the beach technically. I felt sorry for the fans who travelled. It'd been nice to see them put in a bit more of an effort, I guess. Maybe that's harsh, I don't know. But City are class, aren't they? So it is what it is.
Dan, we're talking about VAR again. Obviously, it really didn't matter in the end. However, I think City were probably settling nerves thanks to it pretty early on. I mean, like say, the first 15 minutes, you're keeping a clean sheet, you keep them within the game. I'm not saying that City weren't on top or anything, but, I think psychologically, when you're fighting an uphill battle all season anyway against a video assistant referee, it just doesn't help.
Yeah, I think it just kills the game so early. I think if Wolves can stay in it and try and get to something like half-time, gives you a bit more fight and you can try and grind and get a bit grittier. But it just killed the game. The floodgates opened and their class showed, because Wolves, I don't know, we tried to chase it. We did have a go at them, but they're just better than us. And I think it was at the 3rd or the 4th, Haaland stepping inside and putting it in the opposite corner. You just think,
yeah,
it's better than us, isn't it? So, yeah, it's annoying that the penalty was so early. If that had been given at 4-0, you'd sort of gone, oh, whatever. It just sort of killed the game a little bit. But they are a class act and got what we deserve, to be honest.
What did you think, Jack?
That was one of the occasions, because obviously we all watched it in the pub together and we've been out drinking since basically breakfast. We had a beer with our actual bacon and egg, didn't we? So it was one of those occasions where I was watching that penalty and straight away I was like, it's not a penalty. Like, it doesn't initiate the contact. Our player gets kicked. But then I was sort of thinking, just because you're in a pub surrounded by Wolves fans and everyone wants them to do well, pretty much, were we being biased? So I don't know. I don't know if we'd want it the other way, but I still think it's a little bit soft. But it was never going to get overturned, was it, when it was given? And it is a shame, because, that just kills the game as a spectacle, really, because the longer it goes on as being level, City will start to panic because they have to win. They really, it's in their hands now. They have to realistically win their remaining games and they win the league, especially off the back of their Champions League disappointment. That's the main goal now, isn't it? So there's no room for a slip up, and the best thing to do is just get a nice early penalty out the way to put you up, and then from there, really, bar a little bit of a fight back for the goal, which lasted, celebrations lasted literally about 10 seconds, I think, before they scored again. It was just, a poor day at the office, but very predictable, really. But at the same time, you're playing who I still think they're the best team in the world. Look at their record last season. You're playing away at the best team in the world when you've on paper got nothing to play for, really. Your season has petered out and it's over. It's a shame for us to lose by such a margin, because I think we're better than that usually, and most games would usually be a lot more competitive. But does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? No, not going to lose any sleep over it. And that's why I think I zoned out from watching it after about 40 minutes, and we just got drunk, didn't we? So, or more drunk than we were already.
Harry Michael said in the comments, Kilman and Totti were really poor again. I think I'd agree with that. However, the way that City obviously press, but the way they capitalise on mistakes and force you into mistakes is that normally, realistically, against the other 18 teams in the Premier League, you're probably not going to get punished in the same way. But I mean, it was just one of those, wasn't it, where the press came, made a mistake, and then some of the through balls were just unbelievable. And obviously Haaland's finishing, as Dan said, especially for the fourth, were sublime.
Yeah, I remember the second goal, he got miles in the hair like a salmon, didn't he, and headed it back across. I've seen people criticising Semedo for that, but I thought that was harsh. Kilman, he kind of stood off Haaland for that one you just mentioned, the one they scored just after we got the one back. But it's, like you say, it's tough, isn't it? They're on us constantly. You've got to make a few mistakes. I thought Hugo Bueno looked shaky as well at left back. I'm not going to slag off Totti Gomez. I think he's been brilliant lately. He's going to struggle with that much pressure, as I said. Kilman hasn't been the best lately, so I guess, people have got a bit of a magnifying glass on his performances at the moment, which they have got to improve. But again, hard to get motivated in this sort of fixture. And Hwang's goal was good. Bit of a positive. It was nice to see it at the back of the net. Cunha was quite poor on the day, I thought. I expected a lot more from him. And I think our fans were a bit down as well, because O'Neill revealed before the game that Neto will be on the bench, or he might start. So the fact that he wasn't was a bit like, because it'd been nice to see him come on, I guess. I know it wouldn't have made any difference, but I know Bellegarde come on. That was good to see. But in terms of Kilman and Totti, a bit harsh for me. A bit harsh.
Dan, what do you think about the second penalty? Because it's pretty more of a penalty than the first one, but I don't think he had much of a choice, did he? And it's just one of those where we took the lead, and like Jack said, I think it was seconds before it happened.
Yeah, it's not worth reading into, is it? Teams like that are going to get those decisions at home every single time. So not much to overly think about, to be honest.
Not given on the pitch, obviously, went over to the monitor.
Yeah, the whole point of the monitor is to make sure those sort of teams get those decisions. Well, it's true.
Jack, should I bring you in there?
Yeah, flogging a dead horse, haven't we? Really, like it's
does it concern you though? So Sutton says 1 win in 8. What if we go 1 in 10 and carry that into the start of next season? Obviously, we've got nothing to play for. Does it concern you that it really isn't very good form at all?
I don't buy into that, and people will probably call me out with examples, probably like Leicester winning the league example, where they finished the season before very strong. But I don't buy into that when you've got a massive break and a high turnover of players and people coming back, that just because you've had a poor run the previous season, you're going to carry it on into the next season. I think it's a clean break, really, and the players should be able to handle that mentally and not be thinking about what happened, before they had a holiday.
From the Bruno Lage, that's exactly what happened. Remember, we had a poor end to the season and it started off so bad, and he got sacked. So it can happen. But
that's true. But that was Bruno Lage, wasn't it? So
yeah.
Bruno Lage was just rubbish.
True,
so
so many
different circumstances, injuries as well.
I don't buy into this, because this granted, we got 1 win in 8, but it's been under very difficult circumstances, and with barely enough players to throw out an actual proper strong competing 11, particularly for the first half of that bad run of games. So no, I'm not concerned. I've got good faith in O'Neill if he's backed in the summer to not sort of carry that thing on. So yeah, quite chill about it, really. But there are areas that we do need to address. So you mentioned Kilman. Then I think the most telling thing about Kilman is just how ropey he's looked like since there's been no Dawson beside him. I think Dawson might have been covering up and making him just a little bit more calm, a little bit more comfortable than he actually is when he has to do it by himself. And that's just because of Dawson's experience, really, and probably his vocal ability, which we've touched on before, which I don't think Kilman necessarily possesses in the same way. So there's things to work on there, definitely, and there are areas where we need to improve. You can point at individual performances, but I think we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's been very difficult circumstances, and that 1 win in 8 wouldn't be anywhere near 1 win in 8 so long as we'd actually had a squad full of players who were in the first team, in my opinion. So I think you give them a bit of a free pass, but it'd be nice to at least get a win on the board against Crystal Palace, but obviously they battered Man United the other day, didn't they? So I wouldn't hold my breath.
Harry, I know you were trying to be optimistic sort of before kickoff, and you were trying to have 4-1 Wolves, but the bookies wouldn't.
I couldn't.
So you genuinely couldn't.
Yeah, the bookies literally wouldn't let me out. 3-1 was the most I could have. That, I mean, on Friday night we were 25-1 to win. But there's something in the back of my mind. I think it's just being a deluded Wolves fan, isn't it? There was something in the back of my mind, especially when the Neto news came out. I was thinking, here, come on, here, get a late equaliser. We could do it with 12-1. Put a fiver on it. But then reality hit, didn't it? So,
yeah, one of those things. The Farmers League continues into another week. Let's move on to Palace then. As Jack just said, absolutely took apart Man United at home. Completely different circumstances when you're at Selhurst Park, I'm sure. Dan, I think you've got a little bit of an interest in a couple of Palace fans who are mates, maybe a little banter going around the office. What's the feeling on the ground?
Yeah, it's actually mates I play sport with. It's near Croydon, not close enough to be dangerous, but the other way. But I know quite a few Palace fans, and they're obviously jubilant after that, right? They are ecstatic that they battered United, and they did absolutely batter them. I think they're more worried about losing Elise and
Mateta.
another one that they...
Eze?
Yeah. Eze they think will stay, but there was another one they were...
Mateta, isn't it? Is it the one who scored?
Yeah.
Who rinsed Evans, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know about 8 Guinness. I wasn't really listening, to be honest. You know what? They're on a bit of a roll. I worry about this game. I think we could get it handed to us because the Wolves lads are on the beach, right? They're done. They've got nothing to play for. Palace go above us if they beat us, and they're playing good football with the new manager. So I'm not very confident about this.
Jack, how you feel about this one? Because obviously you just said, on the beach, it's petered out. It's just one of those things. Those players that we've just mentioned there, the Elises, the Ezes, Mateta, Adam Wharton as well in the middle of the park. What a great piece of business he's turned out to be. I think everybody sort of raised eyebrows when he was signed from Blackburn for £80 million as a 20-year-old. But it just goes to show that you can spend a lot of money on a young player and he comes into fruition. I think he may even force his way into Gareth Southgate's plans for the Euros. Incredible midfielder. Do you think we'll have enough to overpower them?
I wouldn't say overpower. I think whatever happens, it will be a tight game either way. Even if you've got nothing to play for and your season is effectively on paper over, it's easier to get your players up against Man United than it would be for an away game at Wolves, just because of who it is, isn't it, to be honest? So, yeah, I think that might be part of it. So, the Selhurst Park fans would obviously always be up for a game against Man United as well, in a way that they probably wouldn't be against what is now basically a lower mid-table clash for nothing away at Molineux just before the end of the season. So yeah, I don't think. How often do you see it as well when a team has a brilliant, massive, great result against a big team and it's all over the headlines, and then they follow it up with absolutely nothing? It happens more than you think, doesn't it? So I think this one will just be a case of who actually wants it more on the day, really, to be honest. But I'm not expecting a classic.
Very true. Seb's just in the comments saying, Harry, have you been to the gym? Well, he wouldn't have seen you there, Seb. It's outside the house for starters. Harry, how do you think we'll approach this one? A little bit different. It's nice to get points on the board because we've got Palace actually sniffing down our backs. To be honest, they could overtake us in the league with a win.
Yeah, and I think the argument of us being on the beach, they should be, shouldn't they, Palace? Because they're in the same situation as us. So, but they're playing really well. I watched a bit of that United game the other night. They were class. They really were.
Playing for the new manager, aren't they? That's the thing.
Yeah, I suppose that helps. It does. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about this game. Like Sutland, was it Sutland said a minute ago? Sutton, he said obviously that our form's not very good. I genuinely thought this would be a game we'd win, just looking at the fixture list a few weeks ago. But now, as we say, I'm not so confident. I'm really only turning up for this game is just to give the players a bit of a clap after the game. Really, that's all it's for, isn't it? It's a shame, really. What could have been? A few months ago, we were thinking this could be a potential game to seal some kind of European place, but it's a shame it's not. And yeah, I'm not feeling confident. But if Neto's actually back for this one, and a few others are back, Bellegarde, we might do shock us and get a win. I don't know. And Seb, I have joined the gym because I weighed myself and I was 15 stone the other day, so I'm back on the treadmill to try and shift off some pounds.
How much of that was your nose?
Yeah.
We knew it was coming.
14 stone. Yeah.
We knew it was coming. Oh dear. Jack, do you think it would just be good to see Neto even back on the bench, give everybody a little bit of a lift? And I think it's all about probably giving everybody a little bit of hope going into next season, because I mean, I don't think he'll play much in terms of the title race last game of the season against Liverpool per se, because it's done in that respect. But maybe just lifting everybody, including the players, and having a little bit of a trajectory to bounce off, rather than sort of saying what we were before of doing almost like a 1 win in 10 scenario.
To be honest, I'm of the opinion now that, like, what's the point? Let's not rush anybody back when we don't need to, because it is on paper to nothing games. So I don't want us to repeat history where we've rushed players back in the past and then end up making things worse. So I think anybody who's not 100% fit, anybody that they're eyeing up in the summer to potentially, have an operation or something like that, because I know Dawson was one of those who's, potentially doing that, just nowhere near the team would be my opinion of it. As long as we can put out a half decent 11, then that will make it respectable. I think that's fair enough. But there's no point in really taking risks, is there? But I suppose on paper, though, I suppose the league position does make a difference, doesn't it? And Fosun actually are keen to finish as high up the table because each position's an extra few million quid. So maybe that'll play into it. But I personally wouldn't be taking risks, particularly if it's assets that you have value and you want to be trying to move on, because what happens, I suppose, if Neto pulls up again, he'll definitely be here at the start of next season. But if we wanted to sell him in the summer, we'd get bloody a packet of Twiglets. So,
Yeah, Steve says Palace were transformed when their front three were reunited. It just improves the bench, doesn't it, with injuries and stuff coming back. Score prediction, Baylis?
2-0 Palace.
2-0 Palace. A pessimistic 2-0. Harry?
I think it'll be 2-2.
2-2. Jack?
You ever seen an episode of The Simpsons when they have like the World Cup go to Springfield and everyone's really excited for a little bit and then they're all passing it around the midfield? I think it'll be that, so I'm going to go 0-0.
0-0. I haven't had many of those. Can't think of we had one. Tell me in the comments. Just before we move on to Baylis with some betting odds, it will be the player of the season and the goal of the season after the match, so straight after the match at full time. Harry, who would your shout be? I think I know who it would be because it's probably going to be the same as mine, and it was a certain person against Tottenham, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I actually downloaded the Wolves app. I didn't have it on my phone just to vote. And I voted for... I was torn on goal of the season. I was torn between Sarabia's volley against Spurs and Cunha's away at Forest, that run and top corner. But I didn't want to cloud my judgment because I don't really like Sarabia. But I went for Sarabia in the end for that one, because that goal was epic at the time, wasn't it? And for player of the season, I think this is quite controversial too. I actually went for Cunha. But, I mean, Lamina's up there for a shout, Semedo. I mean, yeah, there's a few you could pick from, but I've gone for Cunha because I just absolutely love the bloke. But I wouldn't begrudge people who would have the likes of Lamina, that's for sure.
Jack?
I voted, actually. I got the app out and I voted for goal of the season. And I thought, right, player of the season. That's a difficult one. I need to think about that. And then I forgot. So I actually ended up voting for the goal of the season. And the answer is Neto's away at West Brom. And the reason for that is, one, it's away at West Brom. And two, it's the little way when they think he's fucked it before it goes in. And that is the only correct answer. And I'm convinced that will win.
That's so true. It's up there with the Derby fans, isn't it? Weighing Neves is obviously winning top corner. And Baylis, for you?
Player of the season is a tough one, but I would go Lamina. And goal of the season, similar to Jack's. Mine's actually Cunha's at West Brom because it made a load of toothless idiots lose their minds and kick off. And we
don't think it was on the list.
It was on the list.
It was on the list.
Oh,
was it on the
short list? No.
It wasn't even on the short list.
I know. It's just a great finish. And they all lost the plot.
Well, let's add in the next one. Who had celebration of the season?
Cunha, obviously.
Cunha.
Jack, who was your player of the season, Jack? I know you didn't actually vote, but if you could
I didn't actually vote. But the thing with player of the season is I probably overthink it. I think it has to be somebody who's been there pretty much all the season. So that rules out Cunha, that rules out Huang. So that's where I was going with it in my head and thinking, like, who's been the most consistent this season? And Lemina's had a couple of. Lemina has had his worst game against Coventry, and probably one of the most important ones of the season. So he's not been great recently. So and Neto's obviously was good and's been injured. So then I was thinking Semedo's got
chance. Semedo.
For consistency and actually playing, a high amount of minutes and always, pretty much delivering, I think I'd have to say that, unless someone else in the comments or you guys can prove otherwise, with a player that's played, 95% of the minutes.
I mean, Sar's had some bad moments, but he has kept us in a lot of games
recently. Yeah,
Toti Gomez a shout.
I mean, Dawson
like
was
a dark
superb, but he's just got injured.
Yeah, I think that's why we are where we are. Let's get your latest betting odds, and that's it, because we don't do ticket news anymore, because Ticketmaster is shit, and then something needs to change. It's awful. It's terrible.
It's so
every time we try and use a ticketing website, complete waste of time. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
I mean, I guarantee you that no one from the club listens to this podcast, but if someone happens to, just go back to what it was. Please get rid of Ticketmaster.
I mean, they get so much grief from it constantly. All you ever see when people put out stuff about tickets is just negativity. They called it the worst partnership in history. This Ticketmaster and Wolves, it's I don't know how they've made it so bad. It just goes around in circles and then throws you out, and then then you can't find your ticket again. It's just, honestly, whoever's designed that and tried to integrate it, just I have no words.
Yeah, Jeff needs to update the Windows 95 computer in the corner of the ticket office. Clearly. Baylis, hit us with some odds.
Yeah, they're all still quite low, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a big goal affair. So a couple of quick ones in our favour. 1-0 Wolves, Cunha to get the goal, only 35 to 1. 2-1 Wolves, Huang with the first goal, 30 to 1. What I seem to think, Elise to score first, Palace 2-0, 45 to 1 if you want to be negative. But on Sky Bet, who we are supposed to do a feature for and probably will do in the next week, they've got some of those, they do your own selector bet and then boost them like other people's. So hear me out. Cunha to score, Wolves to win, Wharton and Lemina to be carded is 100 to 1.
Nice.
And then the negative one is Mateta and Elise to score, Lemina and Gomez to be carded 100 to 1 again.
Lovely stuff. Please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org. We should probably say that. Let's move on to something else. Saw an article in the BBC. How much is Manchester United squad worth? So it's by the CIES Football Observatory and Transfer Market. So they've done some calculations. Just for Man United, Rashford came out at about 106 million, Højlund 93 million, Garnacho 92 million. So sort of put you in a ballpark figure of where these figures are and how much they are worth. Not how much they're. I think you'd get that for them easy.
106 million for Rashford, do you think?
Is
that not just English Man United inflation on that of about 40 million pounds? Yeah.
Yes. If you play for Wickham, it wouldn't be that. Anthony 63 million, Dallo 61, Bruno Fernandes 60, Anana 53, McTominay 46. I've got Wolves squad in front of me. Let's have some guesses. Who do you reckon the most expensive player is according to the CIES Football Observatory?
Neto or Gomez?
Do you know what?
Gomez.
Neto is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the list.
Because he's been injured recently. Cunha then.
Cunha is top, and how much do you reckon he's valued at?
55 million.
It is 50 million or thereabouts. Next is João Gomez. How much do you reckon?
30?
45.
40 million. Number 3.
8 Nori, surely.
It is 8 Nori.
Oh, yeah.
How much do you reckon?
I'd say
39
million.
Pretty much 40 million.
Yeah.
Same actually goes for Totti Gomez in at number 4.
Really?
Huang is 5th.
That'd be a great bit of business, that would, wouldn't it? To sell him for 40 million.
Yeah.
Don't tell Jeff that. I've just seen that article. He'll be gone. He'll be gone before we play Liverpool.
Hwang Chan, 30 million. And then you got Neto down at 20 million. Kilman at 20
Where's
million.
Kilman? Oh, there, yeah. Kilman were less than Totti Gomez. That don't make sense.
Maybe if you sell him with Craig Dawson, then it would be worth a little bit more, I imagine. Sars in at 15, Bellegarde 15, Tommy Doyle 15, Lemina at 10 million, Semedo 10, Bueno 10, as in Santiago, and then Hugo Bueno.
Age, I suppose,
10.
isn't it? I suppose because they're
It's
all
a
over
bit of
30, isn't it?
It's an algorithm that's basically saying age, how much they play, and goal contribution. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Terrible website.
Well, Lamina's 31, isn't he? Or only very close to 31. So, I mean, it's probably about right. Boubacar Traore, 5 million. That's probably a bit harsh. Sarabia at 5 million. That's pretty much what we pay for him. Nathan Fraser, 5 million. Everybody else on the list is around about the 5 million pound mark. So there you go. Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. Harry, some transfer rumours that were doing the rounds. You've named the podcast after it. Just give us what info you have of somebody off X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah, well, I don't know where the hell this story come from. I don't know, but when there's stories this bizarre and out there, there's got to be something a little bit to it. Paul Pogba to Wolves. I know he's currently banned from football, isn't he? Is he serving a 4-year ban? I'm not sure how long he's into it. He's already in his 30s. But all of a sudden, we're being linked with him for when he's back, or I don't know if he can have his ban shortened. But would you take him at Wolves? Although he's a fantastic player, a World Cup winner, he's such a
luxury
toxic
player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's getting on a bit. I mean, it's mad that we're even having a discussion, but he just gives me horrible vibes every time we played against him when he's been playing for Man U. He was terrible for Man U as well, wasn't he? Just a player who don't put effort in. Imagine if that happened. I just can't see it. But it's very bizarre that the rumours come out. Where's it come from?
When could it even be? Like, how long's he got left?
He's appealed it, hasn't he, or something?
2027. He won't be able to play it competitively until 2027. He'll be 34 by the time that comes around. I mean, it depends if he's
appealed his ban, hasn't he, to get it short?
He's appealed it. Yeah. That's why this rumour's come out, because if he wins his appeal or whatever happens, then we're like, apparently, a team he's considering, which is mental.
Surely he'd also want about 200 grand a week.
Well, I was going to say, would you? I mean, Jack, you're shaking your head. You're saying absolutely not. No way.
It just seems to me that all risk with limited reward being possible, to be honest. So, like, I don't think so. Like, it would be good for about 5 minutes because we'd all like, oh, Pogba's here. We can all get some shirts sold. And then the reality of it, you've got a player who thinks he's probably bigger than the club on massive wages, clearly got some issues in the background and not the best attitude. And, we'll be the ones left to pick up the pieces. So it doesn't seem like our sort of signing at all, does it? So I don't know where this has come from, but I think it might just be a case of what team could we say he's going to go to who isn't one of the big teams, because that's not going to happen. Just pick a mid-table Prem team who likes, bringing in European players and taking a chance. Maybe that's as far as it's gone. But maybe Fosun won a big name because they've never actually had one, have they? Really? They've had young players like Neves. I suppose Coutinho. Yeah, but never like a massive one. Oh, actually, Diego Costa. I'm chatting shit. They had loads of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Remember when we were linked with Cristiano Ronaldo because of the Mendes stuff a few years ago? And he was on Sky Bet and everything. His odds were going down. That was ridiculous. This is almost as ridiculous as that, in my opinion. This is up there with that sort of rumour. But
I don't think we've had a World Cup winner play for us before, have we? Not that I can think of, anyway. Well, from Pogba to Podence, Harry, is that a conversation we need to have? Absolutely tore Villa apart in Europa League.
Yeah, it was a big topic, wasn't it, online? He played really well, to be fair. Obviously, I've got no idea how he's been doing over there. I'm assuming he's been doing well because their fans absolutely love him. 2 great assists, getting, trying to create chance after chance. And for me, I'd rather have him over the likes of Pablo Sarabia. I mean, he's still our player. I think it's done and dusted. I don't think he wants to come back to Wolves. He's towards the end. He was a bit of a rotten egg when, if you remember, his posts on Instagram and that. There's a bit of a nuisance, but if he wanted to come back, I'd love it, personally. I think he'd fit in. And O'Neill, be interesting to see what O'Neill would do with him, because, completely different manager. We played better attacking football than we did under Lopetegui. So
I think they've all got a bit of an ego, haven't they? And that's a lot of the problem. Like, if you're a top player, you want to be playing on the pitch, and dressing rooms get split.
You don't see it much with Portuguese players, though, do you? I think they're very professional on the whole, particularly the ones that we've had. They get their head down. They don't get sort of swayed. Am I going to be chatting rubbish again? No, look, when it's just rubbish. But no, on the whole, I think they tend to be like very professional and very respectful. I think Podence and I'll take Nunes as well. Guedes, you can't really say because he probably didn't settle. So maybe that's a little bit out of character. The fact if Podence was so divisive in the dressing room, but he didn't help himself on social media and stuff, did he? When he was liking posts and commenting about stuff, so that would get on a manager's nerves. But at the same time, we said it on. After the Coventry game, I think if we had players like Podence and Fabio Silva, they'd have started against Coventry, and we probably would have gone through it.
Another Portuguese with a bad attitude.
Yeah, another Portuguese with a bad attitude. I mean, you've got to talk about it, Sam. His celebration the other day in that Rangers game was absolutely cringe. Did you see it? When he was shushing all the Rangers fans. He's been shit. He's been diving all over the floor, and apparently he's had fisticuffs of Alex Ray, so he definitely ain't coming back now. You can't put your fists on a Wolves legend like that and think you're coming back.
He also probably got battered.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, why you fight with Alex Ray? I mean, I have absolutely no idea, and I don't think Fabio Silva could probably fight his way out of a paper bag, let alone against the wee Scot.
They said he swung two and both missed the target.
It's fair. Harry, two of the academy grads, Wes Okadua and Alvin Ayman, are apparently courting interest from the Premier League's top 6. Do you think there's anything in that, or do you think it's one of those where we need to try and keep hold of these 16-year-olds, or is it paper talk?
I'm not even going to try and repeat those names, but the first one you said, wasn't he the one who was 15? And he might have just turned 16. We had to get him out of science class the other week. He's really highly touted. I've actually heard that before, to be fair. The other one, no idea, but the kid's a bit young in it to be transferring them about. Keep them, hopefully. But the fact that they are being linked with these teams just shows how good they could potentially be.
Our academy's doing really well. They're winning a lot of games. I think they get quite a long way in the competition. So I think
again, a chance in the first team as well. It's the best academy to be in.
Yeah,
so many chances in Premier League football.
That was the reason that Gary O'Neill apparently said that he thinks he'll keep them because they have chances of actually being on the fringe of the first team. But I don't want to be in that situation again this time next year where we've had to rely on these kids no matter how highly touted they are. Like I think you can probably try and break in 1 or 2 a season, but you can't have a bench that's just completely made up of them. I think that's a bit of a joke for a Premier League team. So it needs to be addressed. But some of them have come on and done well, but at the same time, we've all said it on occasion where they've come on or had to start and just looked like a duck out of water, whatever the saying is. So it really has cost us. And as I said, going back to that Coventry game, Podence, Fabio Silva may be a push, but Kalajdzic, I think he'd have made the difference and we wouldn't have ended up losing that tie. So.
No, I think that's fair. But it would be nice to sort of see some fruition from the academy because, a lot of it is said about it being category A, one of the best facilities in the country, certainly up there in the Premier League. But, I don't think we've had that many come through. I mean, not really out of the academy, but obviously Kilman has been nurtured into a position. But we're talking about he's not great when he's not next to a 33-year-old Craig Dawson. So, I mean, I don't know how many success stories have really come through it in recent times. I mean, can anyone else think of one? I mean, not really. It's come all the way
recently. Gibbs White,
the bloke.
Gibbs White,
Bueno. The bloke we sold to Porto for not a lot of money that scored 1 million goals.
Goncalves, possibly.
He didn't come for the academy though, did he? He came for a bit and then just left. Yeah,
he was in the academy.
Yeah, but
Gibbs White, really.
I think Gibbs White. Yeah.
The only other one to mention, Harry, is Julian Lopetegui. Looks like he will sign for West Ham, announcing David Moyes' departure. Bit of a bitter end to the season, I think, for him. One of the most successful West Ham managers of recent times. He has a trophy and to walk away with. He can be happy with that. It seems that West Ham fans aren't happy for 99% of the time for some reason. Do you think it is a good fit, or do you think it's all that he had on the table?
Yeah, he's been waiting a very, very long time, hasn't he? Hanging around Wolverhampton for ages after he'd been left our club. I think it's very harsh on Moyes, but we don't watch every game of West Ham, do we? And their fans are very, very disillusioned with their football, but their results and where they are in the league and how they're doing in Europe is mad, really. I think he might be one of those be careful what you wish for moments, doesn't it, getting rid of him? But Lopetegui, I think he's got the potential to do well. I know he's got a bit of a bad reputation within the Wolves fan base because of what happened, but you can't forget he took us from 20th to 13th or whatever it was, and we were down and out at Christmas. He did a really, really good job, and the squad we had really, I mean, we had to get Diego Costa in, didn't we, desperately towards the end, and Yeah, I don't know. I think it could do well because he's got that European pedigree, hasn't he, of having a trophy of Sevilla. But he's got to go well for him, really, because he's been waiting for a job. He's got it, and if it don't go well, he probably won't get a Premier League job again. Yeah, interesting to see how that goes.
What do you think, Jack? I mean, Simon Jordan was talking on TalkSport and had a little bit of a go at Wolverhampton, saying that he doesn't know why he would stay in somewhere like Wolverhampton. He went once and it was closed. But I mean, Simon Jordan is from Czech's Notes, Crystal Palace. So I mean, I don't really know what he's on about there.
From Croydon.
But what do you think?
Croydon.
I think.
Oh, sorry, with your fucking London geography. My God, take your fucking pale blue shirt off and give it a rest. Jesus.
Lopetegui, I'm in the camp that, like, after watching that, first half a season, whatever it was, under Bruno Lage, or the season when Lopetegui came in, just thinking back to how bad that was. It was really, really poor. It was horrendous. We looked doomed. I remember doing this podcast, and even after we sat large, we said, right, does anyone realistically think we're going to stay up? And we all said no. So just look at that on paper and think, for us to not just stay up, but stay up and finish 13th, that was an incredible achievement. I know that we were backed. I know it wasn't easy along the way. I know that he fell out with players. He had his favourites. We got battered a few times, like quite embarrassingly, Brighton, Arsenal. But on paper, to get us out of that mess was an incredible achievement. It's probably one of the achievements of his bloody career, because I thought we were doomed. So I've got a bit more time for him than most Wolves fans. I'm convinced that the stuff that happened with him being lied about how much money we were going to have, that was from us, not from him. Like, I'm sure that's a Jeff Sheafosen thing. So the fact he walked away, the only real thing we can blame him for is the timing. But if he hasn't been, showing the full deck of cards, then you can't really blame him. So I've got a feeling he'll go in there, London club. They probably got more money than us, spend, and he'll do quite well. To be honest, I think that's what will happen. But I know some of the West Ham fans weren't overly thrilled about it. But like, look at his record in European competitions. And then, as you said again, they're never happy, are they? Like, if one of our managers won a European Cup last season, he could stay until we're in League Two, as far as I care. Whatever. Sounds like we had that moment. So whatever.
They are the most fickle fans I've ever met. West Ham fans, and I like them because they're a bit like us, but they are so fickle.
They think they should be title challengers. That's why they think they're like monsters, don't they?
It's not that. It's just that they'll like turn on everyone immediately. Like, Moyes won them a European Cup, as Jack said. He should be. Mad. If he wants to go, fair enough, go. But he should be a hero there.
It should buy you a little bit more time than 9 months, shouldn't it? Really.
Yeah, totally.
It's not just that. Like, think. Look at that. His whole term. He's done really well for them, and he's been great. Yeah. So but
they got rid of him last time, didn't they? And they struggled.
Yeah.
Remember, they had him before, got rid of him, really struggled, got him back. He steadied the ship and did all this. So it is mad.
If Lopetegui doesn't get the money or doesn't get a war chest, he won't do much good there, because they're going to have to lose some players as well, by the sounds of things.
It's a difficult job.
He's always had a big budget. I mean, I think when he went to Porto, he had their biggest ever budget to spend, and obviously went to Sevilla, who had been winning the Europa League since I can remember. I mean, you talk about integrity and the kind of person he is. Obviously, touting for the Real Madrid job whilst he was coaching Spain, got sacked. Last 14 games at Real Madrid, went to Sevilla, did well. Obviously, walked out on Wolves on the dawn of the season. So, I mean, it tells you a little bit about his character, I'm sure. But there you go. A nice comment from Seb. I won't get us cancelled, though. We will leave it there, I think, for another week. So we'll say goodbye to Harry Mansell.
Just before we go, I've got to bring up that story you mentioned earlier, Sam. That Bielsa has called up a semi-professional footballer for Uruguay.
I saw that.
He's got 57 goals in 39 games. His name is Walter Dominguez, a semi-pro footballer playing for a national team, especially like Uruguay. And it's only a friendly, but that's like a fairy tale story. I said to you, it's like the Steve Ball version of Uruguay. Although Steve Ball was a pro, and I know we're in Division 2 at the time, maybe League 2 these days. But what a story that is, calling up a semi-professional footballer. Just thought I'd throw that in. I know it's a bit off-key, but I thought it was a great story.
Do you know how many leagues it is below, like the Uruguayan top league?
Well, if it's semi-pro, I'm assuming it's like kiddies league level.
To be fair, I mean,
So, like,
how
probably just-
strong is the Uruguayan league? To be fair,
Exactly.
That's
So it
the-
might be a bit higher than that. Yeah. Well, he's a semi-professional footballer, so he's a stripper in his spare time.
I do not believe you.
Paint
I'm
stripper.
joking. Yeah.
Baby reindeer.
Uh,
We'll say goodbye to Dan Baylis
Goodbye.
and Jack Williams.
Bye, everybody.